A topic that's not often talked about between the social media and the people telling you to buy a business is working capital. So, as someone who's bought and sold multiple companies and who's helped hundreds of people as a coach buy and sell companies, working capital is the amount of cash that it requires to run your day-to-day operations. So, specifically, when it comes to buying a business, how do you identify the working capital that's required? More importantly, how do you fund it? Because when you normally buy a business in an asset deal, it's cash-free, debt-free, meaning you come into the business day one with no cash. The seller takes the cash, they take the accounts receivable, you come in with nothing. Now, that's the typical way to do it. So then the standard way to fund your first 3 months is with a line of credit. Now, a line of credit is going to be a higher interest rate than your SBA loan. But here's another way that most people won't tell you about. What I like to do is to negotiate the seller leaving me some cash or some accounts receivable as part of that working capital calculation. Now, how do you calculate working capital? Working capital is really looked at in a couple of different ways. Now, the traditional way is just to look at current assets minus current liabilities on the balance sheet. What I think that misleads you to in a small business is that most small businesses don't have that much debt. They mostly have very little at all. So it's going to skew it. So what I like to look at is, what are the days sales outstanding? So that's the amount of days it takes to collect an invoice. And in certain businesses and certain companies, you might get paid immediately, right? Like if you've got a plumbing fix or an HVAC company, like your customer is going to pay you as soon as you do the service. But in other industries that are more critical to this, manufacturing, construction, you might work on a project for a couple of months, and then it might take your customers 45 to 60 days to pay you. So you need to know the days sales outstanding. Then you need to know what your average COGS, your cost of goods sold, material, labor to produce the good or service, and then your OPEX for that time period. So if it's days sales outstanding is 45 to collect an invoice, then you really need to know what are my expenses and cost of goods sold for 45 days, and then leave yourself a cushion. So make it 60 to 90 days. And that's the amount of cushion you really need to have in the working capital number that you either get from the seller or get from the lender, but a combination of two is what's really key. So look at those numbers as you start to assess deals and make sure that you do not undercapitalize when you take over, because that's a big issue of why companies fail in their first 6 months.